My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, May 5th, 2025. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. On the show today, news. In listener questions, would you visit a Muppets-themed bar? And what rides should you ride now because they might not be here in 5 years? Then in our main segment, Jim tells us about the ideas Disney considered for New Fantasyland but didn't use. Let's get started by bringing in the man who doubts this is the future that Dippin' Dots was the ice cream of. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
Fine, Len, but Dipping Dots, you've seen these things, right?
I've had them frozen to the roof of my mouth, like everyone. What?
Okay, that's the thing. For me, other people look at Dipping Dots, they go, ooh, look, a fun variation of my usual dessert. Me, Len, I look at the teeny tiny little balls of ice cream and think, this wasn't something that someone did deliberately. This was an industrial accident, okay?
Exactly.
That somebody in a panic. I meant to do that. I mean,
you know what I loved about them?
What?
It combines three bonkers things. Well, three great things. One, ice cream. Two, nitrogen. And then three, frosting. Like, who puts frosting on ice cream? That I think we need to meet that person and give them a medal. I think.
Yeah. But for me, Len, again, this is, you got chocolate, my peanut butter. The thing that Hershey did when they acquired Reese's Peanut Butter Cups back in '63. I mean, sure, everyone laughs at that origin story now, but I bet if you dig down onto that tail, Len, that's an out of control rail car loaded with Skippy flying off the track and going through the roof of a Hershey storage shed.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Len, how often does tragedy lead to a tasty treat? I mean, few people today recall the great molasses flood of January of 2000.
Was it Boston?
Boston, yes.
Yeah.
January.
Two people, except for the people who listen to the show. Go ahead.
There we go. January 1919.
Yeah.
A molasses tank containing 2.3 million gallons of this thing splits open, and it sends a 25-foot tall wave of molasses hurtling down Commercial Street, which, by the way, Len, led to the creation of the ginger snap. However, in order to make the authentic Boston version of ginger snap, you just have to fold in a hint of cobblestone and horse dung.
To make it truly authentic from the turn of the 20th century.
There we go.
I know that the molasses thing was a tragedy, and don't get me wrong, I feel bad for everyone that was affected by it.
Yeah.
In my head, when someone says, molasses flood, I'm thinking like, you've got a good 3 hours from the time the tank ruptures to the time it gets to you. Like, oh no, the molasses is coming. Let's run! You got time for coffee? Yeah.
You're not wrong. Again, remember, January 1919. All right?
That's what I'm saying. It's molasses in January. Like, how?
Again, I hear this story, and by the way, 23 people did die. 150 people.
No, I know.
150 people were injured. But it's, I like you, I hear that and think, this is like those people who can't outrun the mummy in horror movies.
Exactly. Didn't I hear too that the buildings that were flooded retained the dark mark of molasses for like 100 years?
Well, no, actually, what's so funny, if you go to this neighborhood today in Boston at the height of summer, we're talking July, August, and you walk in and we're like, why do I want cookies? It got into everything, and it's still there. You can still smell it.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that we know this, and it's like this part is completely unscripted, right?
No, that's it exactly. Just come here for the pointless stories, folks.
And speaking of everyone who comes here for pointless stories, thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/Jim Hill Media, including Lisa McRae, Rochester Rick 33, Bruce Scherer, Eric Wayand, Carrie Cravell, and Michael Del Sol. Jim, this is the Epic Universe culinary team working hard to get the last food item perfected for Das Steakhouse in Dark Universe. They say it's a vegetarian pasta designed to balance the meatier parts of the menu, and that the new dish, fettuccine Alfredo, should be available any day now. True story.
Oh, I love that name. Oh, speaking of things related to Dark Universe, I only saw this week. What is the name of the windmill-related restaurant?
Burning Blade Tavern.
Burning Blade Tavern. Evidently, there's a bit of area lighting that you can only see it at night, but the gimmick of it is before the burning blade actually bursts into flame, you can see in the woods alongside of the restaurant. Evidently, there's a mob with torches that they replicate that are walking toward the building, and then only then, once the mob seems to reach the building, does the blade, and it's just like somebody caught it on video, and it's like, now I have to see this. Holy cow!
I don't care what it costs. The fact that somebody thought of it and then got it approved, is legendary. Yeah. That is amazing. Oh my god, I gotta look for that.
Okay,
Laurel and I have preview tickets prior to opening, and then we've got the media event on the 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Very cool.
I'll look for it.
Okay.
All right, cool. Mm-hmm. All right. On to the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is sponsored by DVC Rental Store. Have you ever dreamed about staying in deluxe accommodations at Disney for a fraction of the cost? If so, the DVC Rental Store connects guests with incredible savings on Disney Vacation Club resorts. Whether you're a DVC member looking to rent your points or a guest who's looking to stay in style, the DVC Rental Store offers a seamless process for both. And don't forget, they also offer exciting point swaps for unforgettable experiences like cruises and adventures. Also, the DVC Rental Store is currently running a limited time promotion where they're offering the lowest prices of the year. So check them out at dvcrentalstore.com/DisneyDish. All right, on to the news. So, Jim, speaking of Universal Orlando, we now have our first set of Epic Universe Park hours. Mm-hmm. It is starting from May 22nd, the opening day, through May 31st. It's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. with early park admission starting at 8 a.m., and that begins on May 23rd. So we kind of guessed it would be 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and this sort of confirms it. I kind of think that's what the hours are going to be going forward.
Okay, worth noting here that friend of the show, BioReconstruct, has done numerous flyovers at night at this point, and the Celestial Park nighttime show, thing that's going on in the lagoon, evidently they have been testing all of the various variations on it. So, again, you hang long enough, you hang there for close, I would imagine you're going to get to see some interesting stuff after dark.
Yeah, I saw Bio stuff, which is really interesting. We knew they were working on a fountain show, but also over on Blue Sky, Phi Bell Phi, known as Bell, has been tracking the nighttime interland performances. So like Dark Universe does its own little thing once it gets dark. Ministry of Magic does its own little thing there too. And she's tracking the schedule really, it's really super helpful. So we're going to see not only Celestial Park doing something, but every little land looks like they have it. I kind of liken this to the Tree of Life Awakenings thing in Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
So it's not something like you're going to go out of your way to sit and watch unless you're a completist, right? But as you're going through the land, if you happen to be there when it happens, you're going to think, oh my God, that's really pleasant. It's great that someone thought of that.
Okay. That said, though, it sounds like you and Laurel are really going to get a workout during your various visits to the park, checking out all of this nighttime stuff, let alone the stuff that goes on during the day at Epic Universe.
I think starting in May, I've got like 7 or 8 specific visits to the park scheduled. So every couple of days I'll be there. It'll be great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking to see how it works, with real paying guests.
Okay, there you go. And by the way, the folks at Universal, if you're making the name tag for Len, that's Len. Okay, so just so you know,
Len, exactly.
Put that right on there.
Also, speaking of Universal Orlando, we got some news from Volcano Bay. One is that they're discontinuing virtual lines and the Tapu Tapu device starting October 1st, 2025. Jim, what do you make of this?
Well, as somebody who was there on opening day for Volcano Bay, which is when they began the whole, we have 3 theme parks now. No, you have 2 theme parks and a water park. But thanks for
water park.
There we go. Yeah. This water park, or water theme park, as they like to call it, was built on the back of virtual lines and Tapu Tapu. So the fact that they are walking away, I mean, literally walking away from this is fascinating. And that coupled with further on down the line, there's a 5-month-long close of Volcano Bay, right, for an extended rehab?
Maintenance. Yeah, that doesn't begin till late October 2026. So they've given people tons of time for that. Yeah, and you kind of expect that you need a maintenance period every few years for this thing. So
those of us who pay attention to how Disney handles Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon, this is not a surprise. But again, it will be interesting because they're just effectively October 1st of this year turning off Tapu Tapu. But again, it's hardwired into this park. So if you think about how you were able to order food, how you were able to experience attractions. So be interesting to see what gets changed out during that 5-month review. But again, as you mentioned, 2026. Not
tons of time.
Yeah.
I was surprised actually to hear that Universal was going to use virtual lines at water parks, because water park slides have really low capacity, and allocating even some of that to virtual lines would have been super, super difficult. My guess is that the money that they needed to make to pay for like the maintenance of it and the running of the separate lines just wasn't enough to cover ongoing expenses.
What's interesting to me is I can't help looking at this in isolation. I mean, for example, in just the past 3 months or so, we've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind drop its virtual queue, and now the notion of, look, you put in the sweat equity, you can get on this ride. And I think long term, that's what I think they learned with Volcano Bay, is that people at a water park, they just want to get online and get on the slide. They don't want to, first I want to, here I'll tapu and I'll get into the virtual queue, and it's just sort of like, just let me get in line.
Right.
And I think that's ultimately what this is about as well.
Yeah, I think, virtual lines or priority queues, right? Let's call them what they are. So Fast Pass, Lightning Lane, Tapu Tapu, they're all priority queues, right? You've got the regular standby line, then you've got people who get priority above that, right? Those things only work if you've got underutilized attractions where the people who are in the virtual line can go and do, right? And in a water park, you don't really have that kind of extra capacity. Like in the Magic Kingdom, right? If you've got a lightning lane for Tiana's Bayou Adventure or for Big Thunder, you can go to Enchanted Room or Country Bear Jamboree.
Yep, you can. You can.
And that's what you're supposed to do with that, right? You go to underutilized capacity. By the way, did I tell you that I emailed Bruce Laval this exact question last week?
No, really?
and he responded. Yeah.
Oh,
so first time I've ever met him. So
how cool!
So for our listeners,
all right.
Bruce Laval is a former Disney industrial engineer who invented FastPass.
That he did.
So this was the first time I've ever emailed him.
Wow.
Anyway, so my question to Bruce was like, does FastPass and priority queues does that increase park capacity? And we know it doesn't increase ride capacity, but does it increase park capacity? And he's like, yeah, because people go to underutilized attractions. So it doesn't raise the park's theoretical capacity, but it raises its operational capacity because you're routing people to things they wouldn't normally go to. Yeah, it was a super subtle point. I'm glad. He was super clear in how he made it too. So Bruce is a smart dude.
But that's an important distinction, though. Wow. Okay.
Yep,
wow.
yep.
Cool.
Super cool.
Keep that connection going. How cool. So,
I will.
Okay.
Also, and speaking of Walt Disney World, we've heard that cast member previews start in a little over 2 weeks for Disney Villains Unfairly Ever After. That's May 21st, 22nd, 23rd. And then The Little Mermaid, A Musical Adventure on the 24th, 25th, and 26th. So those both debut on the 27th.
Okay.
So it looks like that the week of May 20th in Orlando is going to be a ton of park news.
What an amazing coincidence, Len. Wow.
How about that? Yeah. All right. Also, Jim, last week we mentioned a schedule shift in the Magic Kingdom around July 2nd that suggested when the new nighttime parade, Disney Starlight, might debut in July. And this week we got a couple more hints about that schedule. It looks like the Magic Kingdom fireworks shifts from 9:20 p.m. performances to 10 p.m. around July 6th. And Jim, I think that means that we could have an evening parade at 9 o'clock-ish.
Okay.
8:30, 8:45, 9 o'clock. Sunset is around 8:25 p.m. that week in July. So 9:20 still would have been fine for fireworks. So yeah, so if we have a 10 o'clock fireworks. We could have an evening parade start at 9, be done by like 9:40 or so. You know, once it gets all the way back to Main Street, USA. Yeah. So 9:20 still would have been okay for fireworks, but they shifted it to 10 o'clock. That seems to indicate a post July 4th parade debut.
Okay. No, that works. That works. Good math.
Also, another debut news, the Spaceship Earth Lounge Geo 82 opens June 4th, 2025, and you can make reservations starting tomorrow, May 6th. There's a fireworks viewing experience available for, Jim, I'm not making this up, $191 per person plus gratuity.
Oh.
That includes, it includes a window side table, a glass of champagne, or if they're doing a special event, an event-themed cocktail, and then savory snacks and sweets. I would have to wear cargo pants and stuff them with canapes coming out of this thing to make $191. Like, I would come out smelling of like Swiss cheese and bacon.
More to the point, at that price point, I want a cast member standing behind me shaking my chair. But just like,
yeah, I know.
As each fireworks show goes off, boom.
I want somebody behind me going,
that's right. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, God, amazing. And you know what they need to do? Oh, okay. Here's what they need to do.
Yeah.
We need cast members behind us with little bubble wrap that just go pop, 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 pop every time one of the fireworks explodes. Because we'll get the audio.
There we go.
We'll get the big boom.
Yep.
But we're not going to get the little crackle of the fireworks.
No,
all right.
That's it exactly.
Disney, get on this.
Okay.
All right. And speaking of Epcot, in surveys, our friend Kate Giansante sent in a new Epcot survey question or two. Jim, I will read you the question and then note the interesting new response that Disney has.
Okay.
And the question is this: which of the following were significant sources of information and research material you used when planning your recent visit to the Walt Disney World Resort prior to booking? And it's got the usual stuff like friends, family, Plan Disney, My Disney Experience. But the next one after that, Jim, generative AI, including ChatGPT and Copilot. So are people really using ChatGPT to research trips now? I get it. But
well, more to the point, think about now when you use Google for anything, you get that sort of forced in your face, like, this is what AI has found for you. And it's like, well, thank you, but I'd really like something that's a bit more accurate. But
exactly.
Lovely that you stepped up. But yeah, I'd like something truthful, please.
A couple weeks ago, someone forwarded me an Instagram reel of someone who used ChatGPT to plan I think it was a Disneyland touring plan. And I was like, look, I'm a computer scientist. My master's thesis is in a branch of AI. Please, dear God, don't do this ever. Like, this is all it's doing is basically summarizing the what's on the web, right? And if what's on the web is wrong or inaccurate or not quite accurate, that's all you're going to get. It can't correct errors. Yeah.
No, not at all. In fact, what I love about it when it comes up on Google, I look at that and it's just sort of like, wow, I have amazing job security.
Look, if you want questionably sourced material from the internet, just listen to us.
There we go.
The other question that Kate sent in that I thought was super interesting was this one, and I haven't seen it before. I felt confident that I made the right choices and knew how my plans would unfold. Strongly agree, somewhat agree, neither agree, disagree, and so on.
Wow.
So it's like, what did you use to plan? And then the second question, how'd that work out for you?
I want to say, Len, the very same question was once posed to the captain of the Titanic. And how did that work out?
Exactly. I love it. Also, in terms of surveys, our friend Andrew Ford and the legendary BioReconstruct himself sent in an Epic Universe survey with a glitch. And it's this. On the day of your visit to Epic Universe, approximately how many hours did you spend in Epic Universe? And remember now, Epic is open from 9 or 10 to 9. So Andrew and Bio both put 11, and the error message that came up that said, your value, the number of hours that you've spent in Epic, must be equal to or less than 9. I'm sure they'll get that fixed, but come on, guys.
All right. Okay. Okay.
On to listener questions from Greg Dykes, whose email begins with, okay, hear me out. You got to love those.
Okay.
He says this, the Hollywood Studios version of the Brown Derby restaurant was inspired by the Vine Street Brown Derby location and not the original Wilshire Boulevard location. That's because the Vine Street location is actually in Hollywood. So what if Disney took the idea and also modeled a lounge from the Hollywood area, maybe in the area near the Rock and Roller Coaster, but no ordinary lounge. It's inspired by one of the famous rock bars in West Hollywood, but with the Muppets. Think Gonzo A Go-Go, or my favorite, the Rainbow Connection Lounge, inspired by the famous Rainbow Bar. On the inside, it's similar to Trader Sam's, except with rats up in the bar's bottles, helping the bartenders because no good idea ever goes away. Also, a video backdrop shows a stage with the Electric Mayhem playing recent covers of songs, maybe even with some artists like the old Muppet Show. And then you reuse the Stadler and Waldorf animatronics from Muppets 3D and create a window next to the bar with Stadler and Waldorf, who are the current owners of the bar, interacting, ridiculing patrons at the bar or the band play. That's Greg's idea. Jim, what is it?
I love
Tell me a single thing wrong with this idea, Jim.
No, this is brilliant. Oh my God. And more to the point, there is precedent. Think about how in Trader Sam's you have Oa from the old Enchanted Tiki Room under new management. No, this is brilliant. And anything that increases the Muppets' presence in the park, Greg, please.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Not a single thing wrong. We should make the t-shirts now. Actually, Greg used AI to generate some interior concept art for the bar. I'll throw it in the show notes. But my God, what an amazing idea.
That is great. That is great.
All right. From Mike Girolamo, who says, we haven't been to Walt Disney World since 2018, and we're looking at visiting every 5 years or so, starting around Thanksgiving. We've missed last rides on Splash Mountain, the Great Movie Ride, Ellen's Energy Adventure, and this time we're going to be missing some of our favorites due to closures. So Big Thunder Mountain, Buzz Lightyear, probably Rock and Roller Coaster, and sadly, Muppet Vision 3D. I'm thinking that since the Twilight Zone is an even less well-known IP than it was in the mid-90s, and other Towers of Terror have been rethemed, it might be on the list of a complete overhaul. What rides should we try to get in that might not exist or might change substantially in the next 5 years? We're not in a position to take a quick weekend trip down to ride something one last time, so we're trying to make the most out of this trip. All right, so Jim, attractions that may not be here or may not be the same in 5 years. All right, so let's go over what we think the criteria are that Disney uses to make these kinds of decisions. Number one, low guest demand or low ratings. 2, low or no Lightning Lane revenue. 3, lots of space that could be used for something else big. And then 4, maybe a more popular franchise could fit in there.
Ooh, okay. Well,
all right. So let's start the Magic Kingdom here.
There we go. Okay.
So the obvious one is Hall of Presidents, which I don't think exists in 5 years anyway.
Okay.
Because there's Liberty Square just won't exist in 5 years once Villains Then open. And I got a couple of other things here too. I think the Tomorrowland Speedway is ripe. So I know in talking to, isn't it Jim Scholl who said there were plans to to change out the speed?
We've already seen it nibbled away at. I mean,
many times, yeah.
Yeah. What they shortened the track to make room for Mickey's Birthday Land back in 88 or thereabouts, and it is a prime piece of real estate that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a people pleaser for small children, but.
Low capacity, high rate of cast member injuries, allegedly. It sits on super valuable real estate.
It does.
And I think with the right concept, especially if they can think of a better overall theme for Tomorrowland, that gets done.
And let's not overlook the obvious. We're talking about building the Cars Road Rally attraction on the other side of the park at some point in the not so distant future. So
And I don't think Carousel of Progress is going anywhere. I think it's a landmark attraction. It's the only one that exists. I don't think that's going anywhere. So I think that one's safe. And I think Enchanted Tiki Room is probably safe for the same reason. Not only that, but it's a relatively small footprint. I mean, what else realistically could you put there? But Jim, isn't the live action Lilo and Stitch coming out this month?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And there is, remember, the Tokyo Disneyland version of Tiki that actually stars Stitch. So there is precedent for folding that character into that venue. But that said, there's also an attraction pretty close to the Tiki Room that might come on the chopping block. Yes.
We've talked about ideas for this before. I really think Jungle Cruise is ripe for reimagining. Number one, it's a ton of land.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of upkeep for what is basically 1,000 guests an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of land to dedicate to Peter Pan's flight, right?
Yeah.
So let's assume Cars Land and Villains opens in 2030, right? Those attractions are going to drive all kinds of new Lightning Lane revenue, all kinds of visitation to the parks. So in 5 years, in 2030, they could close Jungle Cruise and build another new attraction there, which would then drive new Lightning Lane demand for that attraction once the Cars Land and Villains Land stuff starts to taper off and normalize. Like, it would just give them a continuous stream of Lightning Lane revenue.
And here's the thing, Len, and by the way, you should go buy a lottery ticket right now, because I don't know if you saw the announcement this past week about the Oriental Land Company about what they have planned for their own Adventureland.
I briefly saw it, but I didn't read it closely. What was it?
They are closing the Jungle Cruise, and they are putting in fact, interesting, they're closing the Jungle Cruise and putting in its Moana-themed IP, its Up-themed IP, and it's Incredibles, but it's Incredibles for the island that Syndrome lived on, so it's all vaguely jungle-themed, adventure-themed. But yeah, the Oriental Land Company came to the exact same conclusion that you came to, and they are moving on it, and they will have it done inside of 10 years. And so, interesting thing is that the folks in Florida will have a proof of concept. It's like, we could do that. Cool.
Yeah, makes total sense. All right, so over in Epcot, I think Journey into Imagination, that's an obvious one. But also Mission Space.
Yeah.
22 years old right now. The bulk of the depreciation has already been incurred. Doesn't drive any demand. Low ratings. Not kid friendly.
Yeah,
you got to think that's had its time.
I don't know. The irony is when you think about how much time, how much effort they put into that attraction, thinking that this is the future of thrill rides. It's no, it isn't, pal.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, the other two I think in Epcot, Impressions de France, which is beyond dated at this point, and then. Here's my question. Where does the American Adventure go from here? Any update that they do is going to be super expensive, take forever, and it's going to be controversial no matter what. So that means in 2030, it'll be nearly 50 years old without ever having a major update. Like, what is it? Just Carousel of Progress? Is it this Epcot's Carousel of Progress? This is it that we go to once every few years. I mean, where does the American Adventure go in 5 years?
The interesting thing about this and Hall of Presidents is whenever I hear Disney talking about kicking the tires about replacing both of these, it's like, look, Travelog, that's the only thing that won't be controversial. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so how do we make a travel log different from what's going on over at Soarin' around the world? Right. What is it that's going to make this different? And especially when you consider how many now, for lack of a better term, Soaring clones there are around the country. When we finally get out to Vegas to check out Horror Unleashed, I want to check out, and I want to say it's Barry Braverman who actually worked on Soarin', who's in charge of this thing that's out in the country now. But yeah, travel log. That's what I've heard. People can't complain about a travel log.
Yeah, that's what I suspect it'll be, something really anodyne and inoffensive. So
there we go.
In the studios, it's got to be Star Wars Launch Bay, but also I think Disney Junior Play and Dance.
Yeah, I mean it's, but at the same time, that is definitely a Pottery Barn moment when you finally make that decision. It's like, okay, what IP, and it's a primo piece of real estate in the center of that theme park. Yeah, it's like, what gets the glass slippers, so to speak. Whatever goes in there has to be worth it, because it's going to be a lot of money to pull down those pre-existing buildings or relocate parking garages or whatever they do there. But it's like, what is the IP that is sponge worthy? Len, there we go. All right.
There we go.
Okay.
And then over in Animal Kingdom, I think Conservation Station, super low rated, hard to get to.
There we go.
Not driving any sort of demand. So probably that would be it.
Okay.
All right, great question. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim tells us about the ideas Disney considered for New Fantasyland, but didn't use. We'll be right back.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're back. All right, Jim, last week we talked about the Alice in Wonderland attraction at Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And that spurred some other interesting conversations.
It did. And again, just the sort of our glide path in today's story. That, look, when the modern Disney company has a big hit film, a couple of things that tend to happen. First, we get a sequel. I mean, that's what happened with the original Frozen. Came out in November of 2013, made $1.3 billion. And so that's how we got Frozen 2 in November 2019, which, by the way, made more money, which is why just last August we learned that at the D23 Expo, we've got not one, but two follow-ups coming, Frozen 3 and Frozen 4. So they're keeping Josh Gad busy. Same thing with Zootopia, came out in March of 2016. We've got the sequel coming out this November. Likewise, Coco, which, by the way, Len, didn't make $1 billion, but came close. I want to say it made $814 million. So sold that many tickets worldwide, and that got us a sequel, which is supposedly, it's in development now up at Emeryville and will arrive in theaters some point in 2029. But the other thing that happens when you're a Disney movie that makes $1 billion is you get a ride, show, or attraction for the parks. And again, back to Frozen. That's how we first got first time in forever, the sing-along show. And then we got Frozen Ever After at Epcot, followed by, we have two now, but with the one that will be opening next year at the soon-to-be rebranded Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris, 3 Frozen lands. Zootopia, again, we've talked on the show about Shanghai got its Zootopia land. We're getting our Zootopia movie inside of the Tree of Life at Animal Kingdom later this year. And Coco, again, just this D23 Expo last year, we learned that there's an attraction coming to California Adventure. So again, you see the pattern. Make $1 billion, and the mouse wants a sequel and a theme park attraction.
There you go. Well, by the way, where's the Coco attraction going in DCA?
That's the interesting thing, because, all right, if you think about it, Len, every year now they do not only the Cinco de Mayo, but the Dias de Muertos celebration. And that's down in that sort of, remember the festival gardens, the restaurant performance space. In fact, Mr. Schul and I and you stood there in the rain.
Oh, yeah.
We made a special trip into the bathrooms because it was still themed for the previous iteration of that side of the park, the end of Route 66. That's supposedly where this will be, because again, this is where the celebrations have been, and it's just sort of like, ooh, this could be a really great space to do Coco in. So what gets interesting about that is like, well, okay, that's where the Goofy's flying school is, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But anyway, all right. Now, again, that pattern of make $1 billion, get a sequel and a theme park attraction, which, by the way, did happen with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Again, movie came out March of 2010, made $1 billion, 25 million worldwide. So the studio did greenlight a sequel, Alice Through the Looking Glass, which finally arrived in theaters May 2016, as well as a theme park attraction, the Alice in Wonderland Maze, which opened with the rest of Shanghai June 16th of that same year, 2016. And by the way, Len, just want to point out that between when Alice Through the Looking Glass arrived in theaters in 2016 and when the Alice in Wonderland Maze opened at Shanghai Disneyland, only 20 days had gone by. So it's like, I mean, talk about being a front-of-mind IP for park guests. It's like, I literally just saw this in theaters. It's like, well, come on in. However,
fantastic.
They were not able to persuade Burton to come back and direct the sequel. James Bobin, who had directed The Muppets for Disney, November of 2011, and then came back and did its sequel, Muppets Most Wanted, March of 2014. He winds up directing Alice to the Looking Glass in Tim Burton's place.
Oh. Why did Tim Burton not want to direct the sequel? Was he just done with the story?
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because, look, here's the thing. Remember, he makes the original Alice with Johnny Depp. And they have worked on 8 films together. So it kind of felt like, oh, it's a no-brainer that he's going to come back. He loves working with Johnny. But here's the thing. Burton had such a miserable time working on Batman Returns back in June of 1991 that he swore off sequels. It wouldn't be till just last year, and we're talking 34 years, Len, till he finally directed a sequel, and that was Beetlejuice, which, by the way, worked out 6th highest grossing film for all of 2024, made up $500 million worldwide. But again, we're now talking about 15 years ago. And Tim Burton's Alice comes out, again, makes big bucks. Disney wants a sequel and a theme park ride. But Len, there's another reason that the mouse is so urgent on this, because there's that other Disney character that Tim Burton had a hand in, a certain Pumpkin King, which had been really, really lucrative in the long term, which is why the company is thinking now, it's like, could lightning strike twice, especially with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, at least as far as the stateside Disney theme parks were concerned. And in a moment, we will talk about how the nightmare, at least for park operators in Anaheim and Tokyo were concerned, had made their dreams come true. But first, this.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules, and no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
Vitamin Water was born in New York because New Yorkers wanted more. Like more flavor to go with all the flavor. A refreshing drink after climbing 6 flights of stairs to a walk-up apartment, or standing in the subway station in 100-degree heat. Focus when I have an 8-hour shift. And Triple X after I was out all night at a club. Call Triple X. Drink vitamin water. It's from New York.
And we're back. Okay, so Len, we were just talking about how Disney wanted Tim Burton direct sequel to live-action Alice, which again came out late winter, early spring of 2010. And they wanted this attraction based on a Tim Burton movie stateside, because again, we had the thing coming for Shanghai. But if we're being really specific here, the park that absolutely wanted this was Walt Disney World, because they had been looking on with increased envy as every year Disneyland in Anaheim and Tokyo Disneyland, the one over in Japan, were finding all the time new ways to print money every fall with the seasonal overlay of their Haunted Mansion holiday. And of course, we're now talking about that thing that was created for Disneyland back in October of 2001. In fact, it opened, Len, just 3 weeks after 9/11.
Oh, wow. But
here's the thing. It was the right attraction at the right time. People made special trips to Anaheim just to experience this thing. More to the point, they bought mountains of merch that keyed off of the attraction, and which is what caught Tokyo's attention. They were like, yes, we want one of those. And that opens in 2004. And by the way, another
that fast. Wow.
Yeah. And the other thing worth noting here is that the folks at Oriental Land Company, those folks who run Tokyo Disneyland, they were already aware of the rabid fan base for Tim Burton that existed in Japan. It's like, oh, yes, let's get this going. But and again, Walt Disney World would have loved to get in on the action here, except for a crucial difference between Disneyland Park in Anaheim and the Magic Kingdom in Florida. And Len, we've talked about this, that Disneyland out in California is the world's most famous regional theme park, which means 70% of the people who visit that theme park drive in for the day from less than 100 miles away. Whereas Walt Disney World, that's a destination resort. People often save for a lifetime, so they can then fly down to Florida and then experience all of the fabled ride shows and attractions that can be found in the Disney parks there. So again, key difference. Disneyland, as far as the locals who frequent that park, is a place they can always get back to. It's just up the street. If an attraction's down during your visit, like say the Haunted Mansion during the
come back Tuesday.
That's it, exactly. It's closed for six weeks because we need to put in Haunted Mansion holiday. Not a problem. We'll just catch that ride the next time we're back here. And by the way, that very similar at Tokyo. I mean, think about it. There's a subway line that rolls right up to the front of the park. So it's ridiculously easy to get to. Also, more to the point, ridiculously easy to get back to. Say you have to make a return trip to the park because your favorite ride is temporarily shut down. No worries. Whereas Walt Disney World is a place that some families make a once-in-a-lifetime trip to, which is why it is always a big deal when one of the park's signature attractions, like a Haunted Mansion, is down for even a brief rehab. And the folks at Guest Relations just dread times like that, because you do something like that and that automatically translates into a line of very angry people who are like, what do you mean the Haunted Mansion is closed? I paid a lot of money to bring my family to Florida, and how can you even temporarily? You've ruined my vacation. And so this is what Walt Disney World is dealing with. They would dearly love to be able to shut down their mansion and then make a Haunted Mansion holiday, which at the very least would give them an excuse for all that highly lucrative Nightmare Before Christmas merch. Sell that to guests. But again, the deal breaker is 6 weeks to install the show, Len, 2 weeks to pull it out. That's 8 weeks. That's 2 months a year. You'd have to shut down Florida's Haunted Mansion, and can't do it.
That's a lot.
Can't do it.
The something like Haunted Mansion can't be closed 15% of the year.
No.
In Walt Disney World. By the way, we've talked about the rationale that Disney gives for not doing the Haunted Mansion overlay in Disney World. And I didn't believe it until, it was a couple years ago, you and I were talking to someone at Disney, and the topic of the birthday cake castle came up.
Yep.
And the executive was like, oh yeah, people said that we've ruined their once in a lifetime trips for years and stuff like that. And that's, and then they said, and that's why we don't do Haunted Mansion overlay.
Yeah.
Like literally it's that. Like I thought it was just like, oh, we're too lazy and this is a convenient excuse.
No,
right. But it's true. Like people are like, yeah.
And that was the thing in that situation. They volunteered that info. I mean, it wasn't something.
Yeah, they told us that. Yeah, and the way that they said it was like, okay, this is somebody who's listened to one too many guest complaints or has listened to enough guest complaints to sound believable.
Okay, so long story short, Haunted Mansion Holiday is off the table for Florida. However, Tim Burton, again, Alice in Wonderland, arrives in theaters March of 2010. Again, goes on to make $1 billion. And it's just and the folks in Florida are like, oh, wait a minute. Is this our finally get out of jail free card? Or should I say our get into the Tim Burton business card?
There you go.
Okay, so again, Florida has looked on at Anaheim and Tokyo and then looked for ways to get into the Tim Burton business. I mean, for example, we see Jack and Sally. They become meet and greet characters. Mickey's Not So Scary. Oogie Boogie is now a featured performer in the Hocus Pocus Villains Spelltacular show, the thing in front of Cinderella Castle. And let's not forget about the 10-foot tall Jack Skellington puppet that comes out at the start of that park's Halloween-themed fireworks show. But none of that had the same impact, we're talking driving up park attendance or spurring merchandise sales, as Haunted Mansion Holiday. But now, again, we have Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. And this arrives in theaters, Len, just after Disney World had announced its multi-year new Fantasyland project.
Ooh. Oh, we've got the bulldozers out anyway. What the heck?
There we go. All right, which, by the way, we were going to double the size of the Magic Kingdom's most popular land, go from 10 acres to 21. And again, just refresh your memory of the timeline here. Project got officially announced August of 2009 at that year's D23 Expo. However, construction did not officially get underway till May of the following year, 2009. In fact, the inciting event, Len, was when they brought that giant construction crane in and moved the 120-ton tree that was in Pooh's Playful Space over to the front of Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. But anyway, Tim Burton's Alice arrives in theater March of 2010, and this tree isn't going to be moved for like 6 weeks. And so this is enough time to finesse the plans for New Fantasyland. So April 2010, Imagineers take a very close look at the Mad Tea Party. Okay, so this is the Alice-themed spinner that sits between Fantasyland and New Tomorrowland. And it had been themed around Disney's hand-drawn Alice from 1951. But the Imagineers thought, could we maybe change that? Maybe a little paint, a couple of decorative elements to make this established flat ride now a salute to Tim Burton's movie. And what's interesting, Len, is there was actually method to WI's madness because, remember, in the first iteration of the new Fantasyland plans, where Storybook Circus stands today was where Pixie Hollow was a
Pixie Hollow, right? The fairies, yeah. I remember this.
And the idea was you were supposed to be shrunk down to the size of Tinkerbell. So the Imagineers are wondering, well, how does that shrinking process begin? I mean, could it perhaps?
Does it have to begin here?
Can
it begin a little farther away?
All right. So what they wanted to do is that as you walk by the Mad Tea Party, that again you're looking at maybe retheming around Tim Burton, you walk past the Drink Me bottle, which was what Alice drank to make herself smaller as she began her adventures in Wonderland. And likewise, as you're exiting this Disney Fairies area and you're now walking up the hill, heading back into the Magic Kingdom, you walk by the Eat Me cake, which is what Alice ate to make herself larger again. And again,
Jim, they could make those actual food stands too.
There we go. And again, Len, you're 2 for 2 on this week's show because that was actually part of the plan. That
was it really?
It was. So again, seriously, buy a lottery ticket. I'm just saying. All right.
I mean, it writes itself. Why didn't we get this?
2 words. Len Thomas Staggs. All right. Who, let's remember, had been Disney's CFO until he and Jay Rizzullo, who were at that time in a bake-off to see who would be Bob Iger's number 2, they switched jobs. So Jay Rizzullo, who was in charge of the parks, became Disney's new CFO, and likewise Tom Staggs, the present CFO, now ends up in charge of Disney's parks. And Tom, this plan comes across his desk, and Tom is like, no. No. I mean, it's just, guys, this is a pre-existing attraction, all right, that entertains 1,000 guests an hour. It's fine. It doesn't need to be fixed. And if anything, with the mounting costs of New Fantasyland, which, by the way, Len, just to remind folks, when this thing was done, it cost $600 million, which not to put too fine a point on it, Disney got the entirety of Phase 1 of Animal Kingdom back in May of 1998 for that price point. So expand the land for $600 million versus getting a whole theme park. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, no, we are not increasing the cost of this. In fact, if anything, if we are changing these plans, I want to see this more little boy friendly, which again, remember, January of 2011, we saw the next iteration of plans for New Fantasyland, and that was when those next gen meet and greets featuring Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty went away, and that's when we got Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Which I have to say, Len, kind of broke the hearts of the folks who worked merch at the Magic Kingdom, because what they envisioned, Len, was that you'd get off of this new Tim Burton inspired version of the Mad Tea Party and you'd be a little dizzy, but as soon as you walked out, there would be a merch cart sitting there loaded with Tim Burton-esque stuff. And with that moment where you're still a little dizzy, it's like, well, yes, of course. I absolutely do.
Still a little stunned.
Yeah, exactly, I absolutely do need a $70 Spirit jersey. Thank you. Give that to me now. By the way, that whole making sure you get people in front of Tim Burton themed merchandise, that idea continued, Len. I mean, just last year, December 23rd, 2024, we saw Madame Leota's Somewhere Beyond open at Disneyland. And this is that gift shop where, I mean, you are coming out of the exit of that park's haunted mansion, and 6 feet away is a gift shop, which starting in October of every year, oh well, hell, who are we kidding? Starting in Labor Day, is loaded with haunted mansion holiday merch, and they make money hand over fist. And the folks in Florida, they just. Okay. We didn't get it. We didn't get our Tim Burton themed redo of Mad Tea Party, and of course Disney Studios didn't get persuade Tim to direct the sequel. However, a couple of years later he did do the Dumbo movie.
That was Tim Burton?
Yeah, that was Tim Burton. And I just want to close this out with this particular story, Glenn, which I think you will enjoy. That there was again, that movie came out in 2019, and Mr. Burton has since gone on to work on other projects, but he was interviewed by Melanie Goodfellow at Deadline in October of 2022, and she asked about, well, what was it like to work on that film? He said, well, look, my history at Disney is that, well, I started there, and I was hired and fired like several times over my career there, and the thing about the live-action version of Dumbo is that's when I realized that my days at Disney were done. I mean, as I was making this movie at Disney, I realized that I actually was Dumbo, that I was working in this big, horrible circus, and that I needed to escape. So, jeez. So, and he went on to say, that film is very autobiographical at a certain level. So...
Okay. Yeah, that means we're not going to see Tim in on the Disney Studio set anytime soon.
No, and more to the point, the sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas, which, by the way, Disney has tried to get going for years, only instead of stop motion, they want to do CG. They need Tim on board with that, and that's not going to happen. So anyway, if you want to learn more about, we talked about at the top of this feature, the Shanghai Disneyland Alice in Wonderland maze, our pal Jim Schul over on his YouTube channel, Disney Journey, is doing a story, in fact, posted it just last Friday, about that attraction as well as the Alice's Curious Labyrinth at Disneyland Paris. So go check those out. But again, 2 for 2, Len. Wow. I mean, that was that you drink me, eat me food cart. Yeah, I mean, that would have made money hand over fist.
Can you just the marketing alone would have been so easy.
Yeah, I know. But
all right. Fair enough. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Later this week, we'll have a bonus episode that recaps Disney's earnings call, which happens this coming Wednesday, May 7th. On next week's show, with a new nighttime parade about to debut, Jim gives us the history of Disneyland's Light Magic Parade on the anniversary of its start. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. Also, hello, Kayla Curtis, and thanks for listening to the show. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be sharing Great-Grandma Bessie Gray's Korean fried wings recipe. She learned it in Gochang during the war at the Mike the Headless Chicken Festival on Saturday, May 31st, 2025 at Circle Park in beautiful downtown Fruita, Colorado. While Eric and David are doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.